Hey, what's up, guys? I want to do a short video here about the subject of Judaism and Paul. One guy on Facebook has been posting a lot recently about how he thinks that there were two Judaisms, and one of the Judaisms was a bad and evil Judaism, and that was the Judaism of the Torah, the Mosaic Law, and that there was a good Judaism, which was the Judaism, which was the righteousness of faith, which can come through Abraham. And so he's taking a very anti-scriptural view, and he even says this. He is rejecting biblical inerrancy and saying that the Mosaic Law itself was part of the problem. And I was thinking about this and how to respond to this. And one of the first things I was going to say was, well, if you want to talk about different types of Judaisms, we can talk about a form of Judaism, which was like a Pharisaical Judaism, which was problematic, and that there was, strands of legalism and different things in a certain form of Pharisaical Judaism, and that much is true. Although when I was going to say that to that person, my first thought was, well, I think he would probably misunderstand me, and what he would think was that, okay, when Paul talks about the righteousness that comes from the law, therefore Paul would then be criticizing this false Judaism, this false Pharisaical Judaism, and I think that would be wrong. Stephen Westerholm has a great book on the subject. It's called Israel's Law and the Church's Faith, and for a quote-unquote old perspective scholar, it might be a little bit surprising to some people that what he argues is Paul is not criticizing a Jewish legalism or something like that per se when Paul talks about the problem that arises when someone tries to be justified by works of the law. Rather, what Paul is doing is he's saying the law itself tells you that this law demands deeds. And if you were to be justified on the basis of that law, it would require that you had actually obeyed it. But as we know, all have sinned. There is not one who is righteous. So therefore, Paul is not, critiquing a false form of Judaism, although that stuff might be in the background. And there is some of that in the background. There is false forms of Judaism in the background. But when Paul is attacking justification by works of the law, he isn't saying that the Mosaic Law was bad. He isn't necessarily arguing against wrong interpretations of the Mosaic Law, and he isn't necessarily critiquing a false form of Judaism. What he is doing is he's just saying the law that God gave to Moses requires deeds, and if you were to be justified on the basis of that law, you would have had to obey that law. That's part of what the law is. It's a law of works, and no one has not broken it. Everyone has broken it, and in an analogous sense. Obviously, Gentiles weren't under the law, so they couldn't break it directly. But in an analogous sense, they've broken the law of God by breaking the law of their conscience, which sometimes defends them, but sometimes accuses. And as we all know, therefore, everyone is a sinner. So. Very short video here. More on this subject. Stephen Westerholm's book, the Israel's Law and the Church's Faith. Great book. Highly, highly, highly recommend that book. All right. Love you guys.